My sister destroyed my 6-year-old daughter's brand new bike with a hammer right in front of her. That should be a lesson for her, she said. You shouldn't have bought it for her, my mom added. I didn't shout, didn't lose my temper. I just smiled and said one sentence, and their faces went pale. But before I tell you that moment, let me back up, because I know this sounds too wild to be true. But it happened. Picture this. A sunny Saturday afternoon. Rare enough that I had folded the laundry, and the dishwasher wasn't beeping at me for once. The world seemed manageable for a moment. My daughter Eliza, bouncing around with a grin that lit up her face, was excited to show off the bike she'd been dreaming of for weeks. It was shiny, bright, and perfect. And of course, who should be there to ruin this moment? My mom and my sister Shayla. As soon as Eliza saw them, she couldn't wait. Have you seen my new bike? She practically yelled, tugging them outside to show it off like she was presenting treasure. That's when I noticed it, Shayla's face. Her smile tightened, her jaw set in that way that people do when they've tasted something sour but don't want to admit it. I knew that look. I had seen it all my life, but I still wasn't prepared for what came next. Shayla didn't say anything at first. She just stood there, glaring at the bike like it had personally offended her. Eliza, still grinning, proudly pointed out the little details she loved, streamers on the handles, the way the paint sparkled in the sun. Then Shayla spoke, her tone chillingly calm. Let me show you what I think of this. Without another word, she walked into the house, came back out holding a hammer, and I froze. A hammer? In a moment like this, it didn't seem real. But it was. With one sharp swing, she struck the bike's frame. The sound, metal screeching, Eliza gasping, hands flying to her mouth. And then another swing. Crunch. Paint splintered. The wheel bent. I stood there, frozen, my body rigid, while my mind screamed. And do you know what Shayla said? She didn't scream. She didn't rant. She just looked at Eliza and said, that should be a lesson for her. A lesson. Like that was somehow a lesson worth learning, destroying a child's joy in a few hammer strikes. Eliza didn't cry at first. She just stared at her broken bike, her lips trembling, her tiny shoulders shaking. I felt this wave wash over me, not anger, not yet, just shock. And that's when my mom decided to chime in. Instead of comforting her granddaughter or scolding Shayla for turning a bike into rubble, my mom folded her arms and said, you shouldn't have bought it for her. Somehow, it was my fault. I almost laughed. Here I was, watching my sister demolish a 6-year-old's excitement, and I was the one being blamed. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't try to snatch the hammer from Shayla's hands. No, I just smiled. Sometimes silence is sharper than any words you can say. Shayla dropped the hammer onto the driveway with a loud clatter, looking smug, as if she'd just made a brilliant point. My mom nodded approvingly, as though this destruction made sense. And me? I just smiled and said one sentence. Now I know you're wondering what I said that made their faces go pale. I'll get to that, but you should know that moment didn't come out of nowhere. It wasn't some random outburst. No, it had been years in the making. Shayla, my little sister, 2 years younger than me, came into the world screaming. And she's never really stopped. But the difference is, when most kids threw tantrums, their parents taught them boundaries. When Shayla screamed, our parents taught me. Every tantrum of hers somehow became my fault. She didn't get the toy she wanted? Why didn't you let her have yours, Catherine? She lost a game? Why couldn't you let her win? You know how sensitive she is. She broke something? Why did you make her so upset she threw it? By the time I was 10, I could have run a masterclass on walking on eggshells. Growing up, my mom always said, don't upset your sister, which was a laughable concept, because Shayla could get upset over just about anything. I remember one specific moment like it was yesterday. I had saved up my allowance to buy her a cute little necklace. Nothing expensive, but I thought it was a nice gesture. When she opened it, saw it was blue instead of pink, she shrieked as though I had handed her a dead rat and snapped the chain in half. Instead of scolding her, my mom turned to me and said, you know she wanted pink. Why would you get blue? That pretty much summed up my childhood. Shayla broke things and I got blamed. Fast forward a couple of decades, and things hadn't changed much. I studied law, worked long nights, and built a solid career. I make enough to live comfortably and often ended up helping my family financially, covering necessities like groceries, bills, and medications. But here's the catch. When you help people who already resent you, it's never enough. If I didn't fund every little whim, I was labeled selfish or showy. The bike incident didn't come out of nowhere. One afternoon, my daughter, Eliza, and my niece, Brooklyn, were playing outside. Brooklyn had her bike, which had been working fine until it suddenly broke. I didn't see what happened, but I heard the scream. Eliza, in her usual sweet but misguided way, tried to help. She wasn't strong enough to fix it, and truth be told, the bike was beyond saving. But when Shayla saw the broken bike, she immediately pointed at Eliza and screamed, "She broke it." You would have thought Eliza had hit it with a sledgehammer, I thought. Of course, my mom supported her, saying, "Catherine, you need to teach Eliza responsibility. Actions have consequences." I didn't argue, instead suggesting we bring the bike home so David, my husband, could take a look at it. Some battles just aren't worth fighting on the spot. Later that night, David checked the bike. He's great with tools, patient and thorough. After a few minutes, he confirmed that the bike wasn't broken due to anything Eliza did. It had a serious defect. He showed me the fault in the frame, and I realized how dangerous it could have been. If Brooklyn had been riding when it broke, it could have led to a serious accident. Eliza didn't break the bike. It was a manufacturing defect. That's when my anger kicked in. I had fought my way through law school, so I knew exactly how to make people listen when they tried to avoid responsibility. I called the manufacturer, explained the situation, and threw in a few words like liability and child safety for good measure. The next morning, I had an email in my inbox. They were replacing the bike. But I didn't stop there. I argued that a simple replacement wasn't enough. Brooklyn deserved better, especially after the danger she had been put in. They agreed to upgrade to the model she had been dreaming about. I smiled when the email came through. Finally, there would be some justice. Brooklyn would get the bike she wanted, and Eliza's name would be cleared. I kept it a secret, hoping it would be a nice surprise. Imagine Brooklyn's face when she saw her dream bike, and Shayla realizing it was thanks to me, not despite me. For a brief moment, I thought this could heal the rift. But in the driveway, things didn't go as planned. Shayla saw the new bike and in her mind, it was a direct challenge. I had bought that bike for my child, while hers had none. I had gotten the very bike Brooklyn had wanted. And now Eliza would ride it in front of her. To Shayla, it wasn't a gift. It was an insult, a humiliation. And so, in her twisted version of events, she raised a hammer. I let the silence hang in the air, thick with tension. My mom, standing beside Shayla, wore that look of thin-lipped approval. It was like she was waiting for discipline to be served, with dessert to follow. I wasn't about to let that happen. "I'm going to say this once," I said, keeping my voice level, though it surprised even me. "That bike isn't for Eliza." There was a brief silence. Their eyes darted, searching for a catch. "It's for Brooklyn," I said. "I fought with the manufacturer to replace the defective bike and got an upgrade. It's the bike she's wanted for months." Shayla blinked, shaking her head. "No, it isn't," she spat. "Yes, it is," I replied, fighting to keep the satisfaction out of my voice. "The bike was defective, and I got them to upgrade it. It's for Brooklyn." My mother clicked her tongue, clearly unimpressed. "Don't be dramatic, Catherine," she said dismissively. I looked down at the wrecked bike frame, still fresh with the marks of destruction. "I'm not the one who brought a hammer to a children's bike." Shayla's face flushed red with anger. "You're lying. You always lie when you're caught." I crossed my arms, leaning in. "About what? The emails, the paperwork, the words liability and child safety? Would you like me to pull them up or read them aloud right here?" I could see it then, the moment it clicked for them. The realization, the shock, and the subtle recoil. Shayla's defiance faltered, and I finally got to feel the satisfaction of being right. It wasn't about the bike. It was about the story she had told herself. The story she wanted to believe, but now she could no longer ignore the truth. Her gaze flickered between the bike, Eliza, and me. "You expect me to believe you'd do something like that for my child?" she asked. "No," I replied. "I expect you to regret what you just did." Eliza's small, warm hand found the back of my leg. I covered it with mine, not looking down. I didn't want her to see my eyes yet, not like this. My mother stepped forward, as if proximity could reshape reality. Catherine, there's no need to humiliate your sister. You can fix this. Claim insurance. Say it was a misunderstanding. And the part where a grown woman destroyed a 6-year-old's joy on purpose? I asked. Do we classify that as a misunderstanding or a teachable moment? Shayla's arms folded tightly, her knuckles white. It was a moment, she sniffed. People have moments. Kitchen crying is a moment, I shot back. This was a demolition project. Watch your tone, my mother snapped, as if tone was the problem here. I let the silence fall again. This time it had weight. You could almost set a glass on it. Leave, I said. Shayla laughed, sharp and disbelieving. Leave what? My house, I answered. And after that, my life. They stared at me, as though I had announced I was moving to Mars. My mother's hand fluttered up, her fingers clutching pearls that weren't there. Don't be ridiculous. We're family. I met her gaze coldly. That word doesn't mean what you think it does. Shayla narrowed her eyes. You don't mean it. I do. She took a step toward Eliza. I instinctively shifted, putting my hand on her, guiding her behind me. David had been quiet until now, his stillness almost like a room remembering its shape. He stepped onto the porch, wiped his palms on his jeans, and stood beside me. Time to go, he said gently. My mother tried again. David, talk some sense into your wife. I am, he replied, and that was it. A door closed without slamming. Shayla looked into the hallway, as though searching for the right words on a coat hook. You can't do this. We're your family. We help each other. You brought a hammer to my child's joy, I said. Help has exited the chat. For a moment, something flickered in her expression. Fear, comprehension. I couldn't tell. Then she turned to me again, desperate. We can fix this. We can say it was an accident. No one needs to know. Eliza knows, I said. I know. You know. The neighbors probably know too. My mother reached for a compromise. We'll talk tomorrow when you've calmed down. I'm calm, I replied. That's what scares you. David opened the gate. Please leave, I said, and this time I didn't need to add anything. Some sentences are sharper when they end early. They hesitated, caught between old habits and the new reality that bulldozers need keys. And I wasn't handing them over anymore. Shayla went first, her steps quick, her shoulders stiff. My mother followed, pausing on the threshold, as if she might revise the whole scene with a single scolding. I didn't say anything. She stepped out. David closed the door. A seal, not a slam. Silence. Not empty, though. It had a shape, a temperature. I could hear Eliza's small breaths, feel the tremor fading in her hand. We stood there for 10 seconds, long enough for my heartbeat to descend from the roof. Mom. Eliza's voice was soft, paper-thin. Did I do something wrong? I crouched to her level. No, I said. You did nothing wrong. Her chin wobbled. Auntie was mad. She was, I confirmed. But people can be mad and still be wrong. Eliza nodded, her understanding breaking me more than the bike ever had. Do we still get ice cream? She asked, as though angering the adults might have cost us dessert. Absolutely, I said. 2 scoops. 3 if you tell Dad which ones. Chocolate and sprinkles, she said with a faint smile. Scientifically optimal choice, David added, trying to lighten the mood. But the air in the house had changed. It wasn't heavy anymore, it was sharp, clean, almost too clear. I could feel the silence pressing in, but for once, it didn't feel like weakness. It felt like a boundary. We went inside, and while David distracted Eliza with ice cream and sprinkles, I pulled out my phone. My hands didn't shake, not anymore. I opened every account I had been paying into, utilities, streaming, groceries, and one by one, I removed my card. No speech, no announcement, just clicks. Done. It wasn't revenge. It was survival. While I rinsed the bowls, and Eliza crunched sprinkles between her teeth, my phone lit up. It wasn't just messages, it was a call. Mom. Then Shayla. Then Mom again. I didn't pick up, but I read the preview of a text. We just got a notice. Your card was removed from the account. Why would you do this? Add it back. Seconds later. What are you playing at? This is petty. Put the card back right now. I stared at the screen, watching the desperation seep through their words. Funny how quickly people go from righteous to begging when the faucet shuts off. David glanced over. You don't have to answer. I know, I said. I slid the phone face down on the counter, the relentless buzzing still echoing through the room. Call after call, text after text, each one seeming more determined than the last to force its way back into my life. Finally, one message came through, sharp enough that I had to read it twice. You'll regret this. Family is family. You can't just cut us out. I smiled, feeling a sense of peace I hadn't known in a long time, because for the first time, I realized they were wrong. I could cut them out. And I had. By morning, the calls had slowed, but the texts kept coming. And when the buzzing finally stopped, I knew it wasn't peace. It was just planning. The first hint came when a cousin I hadn't spoken to in months pinged me. Hey, sorry about the drama. Hope you and Eliza are okay. I frowned, confused. Drama? A child's bike had been smashed with a hammer, but this was more than drama. This was a crime. Then the screenshots came. My sister and mother had taken their fight online, into the extended family group chat that still carried a digital relic of a family photo from 2015. The story they spun was absurd. Eliza had broken Brooklyn's bike, I refused to help, and most infuriating, they claimed I cut them off financially out of spite. No mention of the hammer. No mention of the driveway. No mention of my mother standing there, silent, as my sister destroyed a child's happiness. The story was so warped, it was almost funny. But then relatives started chiming in. Little thumbs up emojis, comments like, poor Brooklyn, and that's so cruel of Catherine. That was the breaking point. I can handle being seen as cold or difficult, but my daughter being painted as a spoiled brat? That I couldn't let slide. So I didn't. I opened my security app, the kind you use to monitor packages, and found something unexpected. Footage of the meltdown. There was Shayla, walking out with a hammer, Eliza's gasp, metal bending, paint cracking. And in the background, my mother's voice blaming me. It was all there. Clear as day. I didn't add a word, just posted the video in the group chat with one simple line. For the record, that bike was meant for Brooklyn. Shayla destroyed it herself. This is why Brooklyn doesn't have a bike now. The chat exploded. Aunts were gasping in all caps. Cousins were typing WTF like they were preparing for a new shorthand. The rewritten version of events crumbled in an instant, replaced by the cold, unflattering truth. The truth was wearing sweatpants and holding a hammer. I thought I'd feel vindicated, but instead, I felt a deep exhaustion. Once the truth is out there, people don't thank you for it. They just pick sides louder. My mother called within the hour. I almost didn't answer, but some part of me needed to hear what excuse she'd come up with. She didn't disappoint. Yes, maybe your sister overreacted, she started. But how could you post that video? You've ruined her reputation. I suppressed a laugh. She ruined herself, Mom. I just pressed play. You don't humiliate family, she snapped. Funny, I replied. That's exactly what she did to a 6-year-old with a hammer. The silence that followed was heavy enough to cut through the phone line. She hung up. But the fallout wasn't over. The video didn't just stay in the family chat. It spread from friends to neighbors. Someone even posted it on Facebook with the caption, "Who does this?" Apparently, Shayla's husband saw it. I never got along with him. He always seemed like he was auditioning for the role of most tired man in America. But even he couldn't look at that footage and ignore it. He called me. Actually called me, which was rare. Is it real? He asked, his voice flat but holding something deeper. Yes, I replied. It's real. He exhaled slowly. The sound of someone letting go of something heavy. Thank you, he said and hung up. The next thing I knew, he'd filed for divorce and custody of Brooklyn. And that, strangely, was the first time I felt relief. Finally, someone else saw it. Finally, someone said, "This is not okay." The calls from Shayla and my mother didn't stop, but now their tone had changed. Less righteous, more desperate. You didn't have to post it, they said. You're tearing this family apart. Think of your niece. As if I hadn't been thinking of her this whole time. I stopped answering. That night, I sat on the edge of Eliza's bed, watching her sleep, and for the first time in a long time, I let myself feel something. Not rage, not exhaustion, just clarity. Because here's the thing they never understood. Family isn't a free pass. You don't get to hurt and lie and demand and still expect unconditional loyalty. Family is supposed to mean protection, safety, love. And if it doesn't, maybe family is just a word people hide behind when they're afraid of consequences. In the end, I drew the line. Maybe for some, it's too far. For others, maybe not far enough. What do you think? Tell me in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more updates.